Hello and welcome to today's meeting of Democrats of Greater Tucson. My name is Larry Bodine and I'm the president, and I'll be your host today. And I hope everybody had a delicious and wonderful 4th of July. Got to see people have your eardrums blown off by all the fireworks. Let's start with Steve Linder. Steve, tell us about why you belong to DGT and why other people should do the same.
Yes, it's been my pleasure to be a part of DGT for a number of years, and it's the one place we can go to where we can hear interesting topics just about every week from people who are like-minded, encourage people to get involved and go further after their speeches and things. We can take that information and go further. It's the one organization that enables us to do this, whether we're meeting in person, hopefully in the future, or on as we are now. We still have that opportunity, and that's why I'm encouraging anybody who is not currently a member to join. And you can go to the website, click on the box that says join, and become a member of our organization. And I certainly think it's only $20 for the year, very reasonable. I certainly encourage people to do that. So please join our organization.
Thanks a lot, Steve. And let's turn now to Sandy Binion to tell us about upcoming programs. Sandy, go right ahead.
Hi, and thank you, Miranda, for agreeing to speak today. Next week on the 12th, Andres Como is who's the representative from LD3, is going to tell us about all the horrors that went on in the state legislature and the state house last year. The following week, we have Randy Freed, who is announced for candidate, what is presently LD2 for Congress. Katie Hobbs, who is, of course, announced for governor of Arizona. And she's going to tell us why we should be voting for her. She's one of 3 now that have announced. Of course, we all heard one of them, Lopez, a couple of weeks ago. That will round out the month of July, and then I have other things coming up in August. So hopefully you can all join us.
All right, thank you very much. And thank you for all your hard work lining up our wonderful speakers. We have an announcement from Lucy Messing. Go ahead, Lucy.
Hello, DGT. I wanted to let people know about the change that we're having for the Tanque Verde Dems. Late last week, I got a notice from Catherine Hoffman's office that she has a scheduling conflict for this month, so she's going to try and join us next month. So instead of having Catherine Hoffman and the mayor, Rahina will still be joining us on Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. We're going to have all 3 of our LD10 legislators join us, and they will be giving us a wrap up of the disastrous legislative session. You can get the link on our Facebook page or contact me. I hope to see you all there to hear the mayor and our LD10 legislators. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. Appreciate the update.
Hi, everybody. I would love to invite you to our next Drinking Democratically Happy Hour. We hope to have it in July. The only problem is the venue we've used for the last 2 months is not available. So I'm reaching out to my fellow Democrats here. If anybody has an idea for a restaurant / bar that has a room, something like we were using at the Augustine Kitchen downtown, that would be willing to work with us to have our happy hour, please email me those ideas or call me. I put my information in the chat early in the meeting. I'll put it in again, but if y'all would please, come up with some ideas. Maybe there's a restaurant or a bar in your neighborhood that you would like for us to patronize. We were able to meet at Augustine Kitchen in Mercado downtown. We just met, had a great time talking face to face with fellow Democrats. A wide range of conversations go on, and it's just a fun time, a nice way to get out without any restrictions, being able to talk. There's no speaker at these events. It's just us talking to each other. So if you have any ideas, give me a call.
Let's turn now to our speaker, Miranda Lopez. Let me do a quick introduction. Miranda started as the new director of the Pima County Democratic Party in March. She graduated from the University of Arizona in Tucson in 2018. And then she worked as a Democratic organizer in Flagstaff for the 2018 midterms. A native of Phoenix, she was a regional organizing director for the 2020 campaign, in charge of a team of 13 organizers. After the election, she returned to the Pima County Democratic Party as the operations coordinator, and she was promoted to director by County Chair Bonnie Heidler. And today, Miranda is preparing for the Pima County Democratic Party's Yes We Can Climate Action fundraiser, which takes place on July 17th. Democrats of Greater Tucson is a sponsor of the event with Speaker Michael Mann, who has a new book out, and he's a climate scientist at Penn State. Miranda is also working on voter registration and activation, legislative vacancies, fundraising, and volunteers. And with that, Miranda, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Larry and Sandy, for inviting me to speak here today. This is actually perfect because you basically covered all of my first slide, which was just to introduce you all to myself. I'm from Phoenix originally, and I was an organizer for the coordinated campaign, both in 2018 and 2020. I'm super excited to be on board with everybody. I hope that this is informative to everybody about what's been going on with the Pima County Democrats. But essentially what I want to do is I want to cover the basics of how us as the Pima County Democratic Party are working towards 2022, some of the next steps that you all can take in terms of getting involved. And then not really the basics of Pima politics and government, but more at who are the main players this year in terms of the 2022 campaign and how we're going to be working with them, AKA the coordinated and the state party and things like that. The party organizing structure. So I know you all must be very familiar by this point with how the party structure works, but I just want to give like a quick review in case anyone has any questions about that. So first of all, we have the precinct committee people, which are the central link between the voters and the legislative districts. Then you also have the legislative districts. Then there's the county party, which is mostly what I operate out of. And then there's the state party. So the precincts it's the smallest unit of our party as Democrats. There's not really a lot that you have to do in order to become a PC. You just need to be a registered Democrat, and you have to actually live in the precinct that you want to represent. This is actually one of our biggest focuses in terms of what we're trying to build for next year. So we want to have more PCs. There are a couple of different committees right now in the Pima County Democratic Party, including a precinct committee development team, which is basically working on how can we get all of the PCs kind of on the same page in terms of what they need to know as PCs and what are the best resources for them. And in addition to that, just recruiting PCs is one of our biggest priorities right now. So if anyone is not a PC and if you're interested in learning more about that, let me know, contact me, and I can help you get that process started. But they're very essential to what we as the county party do. It's one of the biggest priorities right now. In terms of the legislative districts, so if you ever hear me say LD, that's what I'm talking about, is a legislative district. We have 7 within Pima County. Some of them actually cross over into different counties, but these are, if you go a little bit closer to Tucson, this is the general outlines of all of them. So you have LD9 is kind of that Catalina foothills area. LD10 is like the east side of Tucson. LD14 actually goes all the way down. It includes Vail. It goes really far down south. Same with LD2 and LD4 stretches further west. LD3 is there, and then also LD11 includes like Oro Valley and actually extends up into Pinal County. And so the way that the PCs kind of fit into the LDs is that the PCs are the tiny, tiny little sections. And what's kind of interesting is that the precinct itself doesn't change much in terms of well, year to year, decade to decade redistricting, but the LDs can change quite significantly. And we'll talk about that a little bit as well later on in the presentation. So then you have the county party, which works with the LDs, who are in turn working with their PCs in each of their districts. So we have our county chair, our first vice chair, second corresponding secretary, recording secretary, and our treasurer. All of these officers form the executive committee, which also has additional people such as the LD chairs and anyone who's been appointed to the executive committee. And then the county committee is actually, you have all the PCs that are in the county, and we are actually going to be having a meeting so that we can vote on some platform changes in August. But if you've heard some of these terms before, that's kind of what it's referring to. And the way that I kind of fit into this is that I was hired essentially by the executive committee to help execute some of these strategies that we're working on right now. Okay, state party. So the Arizona Democratic Party is the one that leads all of the county parties, but on a statewide level. It's not necessarily that they tell us what to do, but we do take their lead in a lot of different areas. They also are actually a really great resource for us when it comes to if we need like emergency funding or something like that. You have the state committee, which it's like the executive committee for us, but statewide. So you have the different county chairs that make up that. You also have the ADLCC, it's the Arizona Democratic Legislative Campaign Committee. So if you've heard of these guys and you kind of have like no idea what that means, that's fine. I also was very unsure until like 3 months ago. But basically it's a certain arm of the Arizona Democratic Party that is really focused on the state races. So the state house and the state senate seats for all the LDs, that's its very particular focus. Because as you'll see in some of these upcoming slides, some of these races can get left behind in terms of coordinated efforts. So voter turnout. In 2018, there was 70% voter turnout in Pima County, which was actually higher than the 65% turnout throughout all of Arizona. And it was really due to that really high turnout in Pima County that we were able to flip a US Senate seat, Secretary of State, public instruction, and LD10 representative seat as well was one that we were able to grab. One of the closest statewide races was called under less than 20,000 votes, and one of the closest local races was actually less than 13,000 votes. Now the next year, so notice how the turnout numbers went up, and actually those closest races, those numbers went down. So we had actually 82% turnout in Pima County in 2020, which is incredible. And there was 80% turnout overall in Arizona. We got US president, we got vice president, we got another US Senate seat, we got Pima County Sheriff, apparently. I wasn't even aware of that. We actually did lose a couple of seats in the State House and State Senate, including here in Pima County. We lost a state representative seat in LD4. The closest statewide race was under 11,000 votes, and that was actually the race for president. Joe Biden won Arizona by less than 11,000 votes statewide. The closest local race that we had was actually for the Pima County Board of Supervisors District 1 race with Rex Scott. He won that race by about 730 votes. So basically what I wanted to outline with these numbers is that as the turnout goes up, the margins go down and the races get closer and closer. And the turnout for this upcoming midterm is expected to be higher than the turnout was in 2018. And so naturally what that means is that the margins are going to be even closer. And so really every vote is going to count. Every vote that we can turn out is going to make a significant difference in the final outcome of a lot of these races, both up and down the ballot. So what does that mean for us in terms of coordinating? So there are a few different groups who are involved. So it's not just the Pima County Democratic Party. You also have the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. They are very likely to be involved in the race for Congressional District 2. There are actually 3 candidates for Congressional District 2 currently, and there's probably going to be more. So you have Dr. Randy Freeze, you have Kirsten Engel, and then you also have Daniel Hernandez, who's currently a state representative. The D trip is going to be a pretty significant player in the CD2 race. The Arizona Democratic Party is actually doing its own organizing program. So this is completely separate from the coordinated campaign. This is called the 1530 Project. They are organizing statewide. It's a lot smaller than the coordinated campaign. So there's only going to be maybe a dozen organizers total throughout the entire state. But what the objective of this group is to work specifically with county chairs and the county parties and to work within the communities themselves and completely focus on the lower end of the ticket. So really those state Senate and state House races. And I'm really excited about working with these guys because the guy who's in charge, Hunter Henderson, he and I are actually from the same town. So we have a lot in common there. We've been in constant contact pretty much every week. We give each other updates about what's going on. And the Pima County Party is also heavily involved with the actual hiring of these organizers, which is supposed to be finalized by kind of mid-July. So that's something that we're working on actually right now. So this isn't something that's going to happen like maybe a few months from now or next year. Like, no, this is happening like in a couple of weeks. So super exciting. Then we've also got the Arizona Coordinated Campaign, which some of you might know as Mission for Arizona. So again, this is not the state party necessarily, it is the state coordinated campaign. And the thing about coordinated campaigns is they are actually mainly run by the DNC, essentially, like the national party. And each state has its own coordinated campaign depending on like funding and like when a primary is and all these different factors. So they are primarily focused a little bit higher in the ballot. So usually in their scripts, and if any of you have volunteered with the coordinated campaign before, it'll say something along the lines of, are you supporting Democrats up and down the ballot? But then they'll also have a few specific questions about people like Mark Kelly or Joe Biden. But we've actually been working really closely with them over the last few months as they're getting ready to start hiring more staff and all of that. I'm actually have a lot of personal relationships with the people who are now in charge of the coordinated campaign. And we've all agreed that it's way better to be in like constant communication with each other and to like work more closely together in order for everyone to get, because, you know, we all have the same goal. And in order for everyone to get that goal, it's better to make sure that they know what support is needed, that we're not fighting over resources, that we're not duplicating voter outreach efforts. And so know that coordination started a couple of months ago, and it's going really well. They are also coordinating with the state party as well. There's a lot of talking that's happening, which is really good. Because normally this kind of talking wouldn't happen until like, 3 months before the election. So this is something that I'm really excited about. And if anyone has any questions about this, feel free to ask. But yeah, I feel really great about it. All right, some other organizations that we're either trying to coordinate with or we're going to be having some sort of like roundtable with them include Lucha, Mi Familia Vota, AZ List, Indivisible, Field Team 6, and then there's the Voters' Right to Know Act, which you all may know as Dark Money or the Dirty Money Campaign. You know what? Third time's the charm. I think we're going to do it this year. We have their petitions for the initiative in our office. We're also making sure to have those petitions available at any in-person events that we have. So that's something that we're super supportive of this year, because, you know, it's ridiculous at this point. Like, this is something that has to get onto the ballot. Lucha Mi Familia Vota, it's a little more complicated there because they are specifically nonpartisan, but the work that they are doing in their communities is like super, super important. And we just want to make sure that anything that they're doing, we're not like duplicating that. And we're just trying to stay in contact with them. Easy List is a program that works to elect women specifically in office. And we actually have their political director, Claire Knight. She works out of our office. And so we're always in constant contact with them. We're really excited to make sure that, you know, they keep us in the loop and we keep them in the loop about potential candidates and all of that. Indivisible, as always, is just like, it is truly one of the most impactful community organizations that I've seen in Tucson. And so people who are involved with Indivisible, we haven't been able to reach out yet, but those are definitely people that we want to coordinate with. And then Field Team 6, they're a slightly different thing. They are a California-based group, from what I understand, and they recruit volunteers to all fly into, you know, one city in a battleground state, and then just to register voters. I'm pretty sure we know a few people who work with them, so that's somebody we're going to be working with as well. So there's a lot of different levels to all the coordinating that's happening this year. All right, so I'm going to get into the biggest challenges because I feel like I've been talking for a really long time. All right, so as the biggest challenges for the Pima County Democrats, there are three main ones that we're having that you know, I wanted to come in and talk to you about today. So you've seen the work that, you know, we've done and the work that we're continuing to do, and now I want you to see kind of what we're facing and how you can get involved. So redistricting, this is going to be the main issue. There is an independent redistricting committee who has selected a certain mapping consultant that was not on the top of our priority list. And in addition to all of this, Arizona, we have not gotten a 10th congressional seat. So that was kind of a blow. Because of the redistricting and because of the inaccurate census results, it's just become this great unknown for us. It is this unknown factor that we know is going to have a significant impact on everything that we do, but we have no way to tell exactly how it's going to have an impact. We know that the LD boundaries and the numbers are going to change. It's probably not going to be finalized until early 2022. And what that means is that anyone who is running for a specific seat in an LD, they may not be running for that. They basically have no idea what they're running for at this point because they don't know what that district is going to look like. And then it's also challenging because if you don't live in the district anymore that you want to run in, then it's like, okay, well, do I move? Like, so that's been a big issue. We've been keeping track of this as much as we can. There's actually a redistricting committee with Pima County Democrats led by Susan Bickle, and you can find out more about that on our website. But yeah, this is one of our biggest worries. Some of our other concerns are voting restriction laws, so specifically SB 1485. So this removes voters from the active early voter list if they have not voted at least once in 4 election cycles. It's supposed to go into effect after the 2024 presidential election, where they will receive a notice from their county recorder before they're actually removed from the list. But if they don't say anything, then they'll be removed from the list and they can still vote, but they just won't receive a ballot in the mail. And this can be potentially devastating to Arizona races because, like we were saying before, the higher the turnout, the slimmer the margins. And even with the relatively lower turnout in 2018, there were still really, really close races that were decided by just a few thousand votes. And so potentially what this could do is cut actual votes cast within Pima County by 7,000. Because if you were to take the 77% of Pima County voters who cast their votes by mail, and let's say 3% of them are considered to be inactive voters and are removed from the list, that's potentially 14,000 voters who would no longer be voting by mail. And because voting by mail actually doubles your chances of voting, we can say that 14,000 voters who no longer can vote by mail, there's probably about 7,000 of those people who will end up not voting at all for whatever reason. But these margins are they're too tight to allow this to happen, essentially. And so this is something that we're constantly thinking about. And so the more that we can activate voters and keep them engaged, the less likely this is going to happen. And then funding. So this is related to the We Can fundraiser that Larry had mentioned earlier. So we have been steadily declining in terms of funding, especially because of the pandemic of last year and currently, because it's still going on. We are not going to be having an in-person Udall dinner, nor are we going to have a virtual Udall dinner. It's not going to be an in-person dinner because the venue that we normally would have it at, which is the Desert Diamond Casino Resort, it's a partnership that we have. It's a special kind of partnership that we have with the Tohono O'odham Nation, and they are still not doing in-person events, which we completely understand. But if it's not going to be in person, we don't want to make it a virtual event because it's something that apparently, like what we have discovered is having a virtual event and recruiting and getting sponsors for something that's virtual is completely different from doing that for an in-person event. It's a lot more difficult, and it's just not what we want Udall to be. So the next Udall dinner is planned to be in hopefully of May of 2022. We actually have been facing a lack of funding from unions because there are certain senators who do not support ending the filibuster, nor do they support passing the PRO Act. And because of that, in the states of these senators, there has been very restricted funding from certain unions. So some unions who have supported us for 10 years or so have said, we're not going to be supporting you, which, as the Pima County Democratic Party, we completely understand that. We know that, the filibuster, stopping it it's essential to democracy, and passing the PRO Act is something that, we've been working towards for a century, basically. But, voter contact, it does have a financial cost, whether it's cleaning our data, printing materials, paying our interns, paying to keep the lights on. These are real costs that we still need to cover. And so part of my job over the last few months has been working to find some creative solutions to this problem that we have. So in terms of next steps, what y'all can do to get involved and to help the Pima County Democratic Party, becoming a PC is definitely, I think, one of the most impactful things that you can do for the 2022 campaign. PCs are our boots on the ground. You have this direct impact on your community that is completely unique. And our goal for right now is to get 20 new PCs appointed every month, because the Republicans have gotten a few. I think they got 25 last month, which was crazy. But yeah, the more PCs that we can have to start building that infrastructure with voter outreach and engagement, the better it's going to be for us in the 2022 election. If you are already a PC, or if that's something that maybe there's no available slots in your precinct, becoming a volunteer. We always need help with managing the office. We need help with making phone calls, especially any Spanish speakers that we have. We make calls every day at our office, except for today because it's a holiday. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday from 4 to 6. What our goal is to have 1,000 dials completed every week, meaning, one shift, quote unquote. So basically an hour and a half. Most volunteers can make about 40 dials. And so what we want is to have 25 of those shifts completed every week. So what that means is we want 5 volunteers in the office every day making calls. Most of these are volunteer recruitment or voter engagement calls. But this is one of the biggest things that you can do if you want to get involved. And then also, if you're not already, please consider becoming a donor for about $83 a month, which is about $3 a day. You can become a Cat Dem and give PCDP our regular source of income that we're finding is more and more essential, especially when you can't have these big events that are supposed to be like your main source of fundraising for the year. So like UDOL, for example. What if you can't have UDOL? Well, then you need to find another way. Something else that you can do if you haven't already is to consider purchasing a ticket to our July 17th CAN event. It's closer to 7,500 now. We're about 7,500 away from our $10,000 goal. So any tickets that you would like to buy or any sponsorships that you would like to consider giving, definitely please check out our website where you can do that. And then these are some upcoming events. We just had our office opening on Friday. Our next strategy session, which is something like this, except it's in person. It's me, and I have a slide presentation kind of like this. It's actually going to be next Sunday, and that's going to be at the social hour starts at 3:30, and then my actual presentation starts at 4. We have the We Can fundraiser, which is July 17th. It's a virtual fundraiser. A county committee meeting is coming up on August 21st. So mark your calendars if you're a PC, because you need to be there. And then we're having our UDOL dinner, of course, in May of 2022. All right, questions?
Miranda, I missed that part about the next strategy session. That's a virtual event with you.
It's actually an in-person event. It's at our office, the Pima County Democratic headquarters. And so you can go to this link to sign up. And this is actually a way to sign up for, you can sign up for as many sessions as you'd like, but it's something I've been trying to do. So every other Sunday, I want to make sure that if anyone has any questions about what it is that the Pima County Democrats are doing, or if they are wondering how to get involved, that we can answer those questions and just kind of give you more information in general about what's going on, because there's a lot of information.
Right. And so then with the PC, we're new PCs here in LD3, and the meeting you were talking about in August, that's on the 21st, and that's virtual.
Yes, and that's a virtual meeting, and the invitations for that are going to go out probably towards the end of this upcoming week. That's something that we've been working on, is making sure that all of the PCs get a notice about that, whether it's email, phone, or having something sent in the mail.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, next up we have Shirley Muni. Shirley, go right ahead.
Several years ago, when I was a young gung-ho PC, I wanted to go door to door in my precinct, did not have handouts, because you don't just go present yourself. And I stopped by the headquarters. At that time, I saw stacks of handouts, including door hangers, and I said, I'd love to have some of those for my precinct. And they said, oh no, you can't have those. Those are for the coordinated campaign. Well, I took some anyhow because I had no other materials from county party to hand out in my precinct. So how coordinated is the coordinated campaign? Are they working with the local precincts, the local county parties to provide materials for the PCs?
Yeah, and so I think, are you talking about, was it 2018 by chance that you were talking about?
It was probably before that.
Before 2018, it was called the coordinated, but it really wasn't at all. And so what we are doing is to hopefully avoid any of the situations this upcoming year. And the way that that works, or that is going to work, is that I have actually been checking in weekly with the coordinated campaign organizing director. And so kind of getting updates from her on where she's at with hiring, what their organizing strategy looks like. I'm also in really close contact with the coordinated campaign director, Sean, and talking to him about when their data is going to be up and running, and how they're getting like their funding and how all of that's going to work. I know that both of them have been in contact with all of the, well, they've reached out to all of the LD chairs in the state. They haven't gotten responses back from a few of them, but they have like reached out to introduce themselves and to make sure that, you know, the LD chairs know who they are. And so it's a lot of that just didn't happen before 2018. And even in 2018 and 2020, it was very limited when they did do that, because there was a lot of, you know, miscommunication, and there wasn't as much of an effort to be, you know, actually coordinated. But I can say that, and I firmly believe that this year is going to be really different. The people who are involved are just some of the most hardworking people that I know personally. And they know that it's really important to me that they are the ones who take responsibility for, you know, providing those resources and not just coming in and taking over and then not giving us anything. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have a question from John Yocum. Go right ahead.
Well, I guess I'd just like to say that I'm really tired that Pima County keeps electing Democrats to the state legislature. And every year we hear that we've come up just short again. So I guess the real problem isn't in Pima County, it's in the other legislative districts throughout the state. They're the ones that are not electing as many Democrats as we are. I believe that if we were to put all of our efforts into electing Democrats to the state legislature, to the state Senate and House, then everything else falls in place. If we get Democrats elected in all the LDs, then Mark Kelly gets reelected and Katie Hobbs becomes governor, and everything else falls in place. Is that a possible strategy? Is that just me dreaming with legal marijuana, or is it possible?
No. It's definitely, I would say it's part of the strategy. That is definitely the strategy of the Pima County Democrats. That's the strategy of the ADLCC. It is not the strategy of the coordinated campaign, mostly for reasons that involve kind of the national party and how the national party is investing. But what we're hoping is that instead of ignoring our strategies or taking resources away from our strategies, what instead we're going to be doing with the coordinated campaign is working alongside them so that our strategies, not only do they not cancel each other out, but they actually enhance each other, and they make each other more effective. Like they focus on the top of the ticket, and we put all of our efforts into focusing down the ticket.
All right, we have a question from Joe Danishevsky. Go right ahead, Joe.
Yeah, thanks, Larry. Thanks, Miranda. A lot of great information. How much has the party netted from the Udall dinner?
In 2019, there was actually more made from the mayoral inaugural lunch than the Udall dinner. I believe that year the inaugural lunch made 80,000 and the Udall dinner made 60,000. And then the year after the Udall dinner, I think there was about 50,000 that was made. And a lot of that was because by the time it was decided that the Udall dinner was going to be virtual instead of in person, people had already bought their tickets. Sponsors had already, committed to giving to the event, and most of the money was kept rather than returned. Most people said, "It's fine, you just keep the money."
Okay, thank you. And, there's a number of not-for-profits in Pima County as well as charities that are making virtual fundraising work. And I would be more than willing to sit down with you and talk about that. And I'd hate to see another year go by, a year where we really need the money for resources. That's a good chunk of change to pass up on.
Yeah, I agree. Tucson apparently has the highest density of nonprofits in the United States. So like even more than New York. There's a lot of competition out here. That's become one of our biggest challenges, is figuring out how do we navigate in this semi post-COVID world. Not really though, because the Delta variant might be coming back. And I think a lot of it is us needing to make more phone calls, asking more volunteers to help us with those phone calls. Because that's really, apart from knocking on doors, that's really the most effective way to get people involved and to get them to pledge, is to talk to them on the phone.
Thanks.
All right, Barbara Warren has her hand up. Barbara, please go ahead.
Miranda, you're young enough, that younger than all of us here, and very much will value this question even more than the rest of us, but we all should care. One of the things that you didn't talk about is the last item on the ballot. And that is the election of the Corporation Commission measures. Those are the people who are in the best position to do anything about addressing global climate change by changing regulations in terms of the fuels we use and regulating the fossil fuel industry and so forth. How is the party going to support the candidates for the Corporation Commission? I have another question, and that is, when's the next election for re-election for PCs?
Actually, Sandra Kennedy, we have her petitions at the office because she's going to be running again for corporate commissioner. And so she's also going to be speaking at our We Can fundraiser. So the ones who we know for sure are democratically inclined, we are definitely actively working with them. It would be, I think, a very interesting project to introduce to the Young Dems Task Force, which is essentially the youth committee of the Pima County Democratic Party. They actually just had an in-person event for Pride Month, and they had a couple of speakers there. And I think that would be a really interesting thing for them to take on, is to create events and create awareness within the people in their circles about corporate commissioner and why it's so important. And then to answer your second question, I thought the election was going to be this year in August. Turns out it's going to be next year in August. So my bad.
Thank you.
And I've got a question for you, Miranda, and it concerns recruiting candidates. Yeah, I think the key thing to flipping the legislature is to getting really good state legislative candidates. What is the party doing to recruit candidates?
So that's kind of twofold, because we have candidates who we're trying to recruit them to run in 2022, but then we also have candidates that we are preparing in the event that current representatives resign before their term is over. Statewide, there are about 18 or 19 spots in the House and the Senate that people are expected to leave before the next session starts, just because of how volatile this last session was. So for those people, it's a little bit different. We want to make sure that when they are nominated by their LD, that they have like the relevant, experience and drive and everything like that. But in terms of like actually recruiting for next year, probably our biggest worries are LDs. Probably LD2 is our biggest worry in terms of like finding someone to run. But, we've been reaching out to a lot of people who are knowledgeable about potential candidates who may want to run. People like, Ron Barber and Bill Rowe, people who have been involved for a while and who might know someone who knows someone. But yeah, that's definitely been something I've been learning about a lot.
All right, got a quick question from Steve Linder. Go ahead, Steve.
Hi, yeah, because of some of the horrible laws that were passed in this last session, one of the ways that is being coordinated to fight against them is to put them on the ballot and have voters have their say in 22. But because of that, there's a very quick turnaround of signatures. And at least if you get those signatures, none of these laws can go into effect until voters get to vote on them. My question is, what is the county doing about coordinating getting signatures?
And I think what you might be referring to is the Arizona Deserves Better campaign, where they need to get signatures within the next 90 days. And that's their website right there that I put in the chat. It explains a lot more, but essentially we have their petitions available at our office. What we might actually start doing is to try to go out to places like, libraries and such, where people can actively collect signatures and not just come into the office and sign it. But that's going to depend on where they would need the most help.
Question from Jeannie Christie, who put it in the chat. She says, hopefully Legislative District 11 will be broken up. That's where Mark Fincham and Vince Leach are from. She mentions that, we had a really good candidate, Joanna Mendoza, running for state senate in 2020, but we all know how that turned out. Vince Leach was elected, and he's a QAnon supporter. Miranda, what do you see about the future of LD11?
I mean, based off of what I've been hearing other people saying, and based off of what we've been hearing in the redistricting committee, because they actually haven't even started to draw lines yet. They are waiting for some census data to come back, which they're probably going to get in August. And then they're actually going to start drawing maps and things like that. What I have been hearing is that it is probably LD9 that's going to be broken up. It's the most likely to be broken up. I'm sure LD11 will change, and the demographics are hopefully going to change, because I agree. It's just one of those areas that we've never quite been able to get a hold of. But if there were some, even the smallest difference in terms of what it looked like, it'd be so much easier to try to get someone. Sorry, that was a really non-answer to your question.
Well, there are a lot of unknowns. Let me turn to Susie Anderson, who will be our last questioner of the day. We're coming up on 1 o'clock. Go ahead, Susie.
Hi there. My question is, how do we take back LD4? We have a fight every year with LD11, and we've posted some great candidates, but how do we take back the seat that we lost in LD4?
That's a great question, and that's one of, at least Bonnie and I's, one of our biggest concerns is getting that seat back. There's currently one person who has said that he plans on running, Aram Katz. I'm not sure if you have heard of him or not. He just got his website up and running. But in terms of getting the seat back, we are going to be, kind of redoubling our efforts on increasing voter contact in LD4, as well as LD14, because we feel like those two are the LDs that kind of get not left out, but don't get as much attention as some of the other LDs do. So increasing voter contact, which will hopefully increase the voter turnout in the election.
All right, thank you very much, Miranda. It's been very informative hearing from you today. I wondered if you would wrap up our meeting for us. Tell us how people can get a hold of you and what they should do if they're looking to support your efforts.
Yeah, so I just put my email and my phone number in the chat there. So my email is director@pimadems.org, and my phone number is 480-628-4657. And that's my cell phone. please feel free to text me or call me anytime. I mean, this is what I do for a living, is to talk to people like you guys and to let you know how you can best get involved. And, you know, those 3 ways that we talked about. So become a PC, volunteer, and become a donor. That's really how you can help us with the Pima County Democratic Party.
All right, Miranda, thank you very much. We appreciate your time, and I'm happy so many people attended. And with that, I'm going to draw the meeting to a close, and I look forward to seeing you next Monday at noon. Until then, take care.